Welcome back to another episode of the Wet Dreamz Podcast. Today we are continuing our little mini season on infidelity. I'm your host, Jose Gonzalez. I should introduce myself first. And I work with guys with out of control sexual behavior and couples with sexual issues.
I'm Dr. Brad Hinman. I'm also a therapist who works primarily with men with out of control sexual issues. I see couples for a variety of reasons, sexual issues, infidelity, affairs, low desire, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. And today, in our part 3, so first episode we talked about porn, and does that make you cheat? Second episode we talked about sexual fantasies, and does that make you cheat? Check those out. This episode we will be talking about problematic sexual behaviors. So I feel like this is going to be a kind of controversial one of the 5, because we'll be talking about guys who engage in sexual behaviors online or in person, and the topic of doing those things and how they feel about their relationship, essentially. And if I was going to put it in a nutshell, really the research that we've been doing, essentially, this is today's topic. Yeah, let's dive in for sure. So the people that we're thinking about, the people that I'm thinking about when we talk about guys that have problematic sexual behaviors are, for example, obviously you include the people who watch porn compulsively. That's, kind of the overarching. But you're thinking about people who engage in online sexting or video chatting, or people who engage in emotional affairs or engage with cam girls online or solicit sex workers or any of that VR porn. I don't know if you would throw that in there. I threw it in there, but we'll talk more about technology and pornography and all that stuff in a later episode. But so basically people that engage in online behaviors, and also people that engage in behaviors in person. So there's 2 kind of populations, and we see both of them, correct? You see some of those clients, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so I think the first question that I think about, the first thought that pops in my mind is, if you're engaging in behaviors online, does that make you a cheater / does that mean that you do not like your relationship? You're missing something in the relationship. That's kind of the first big question that comes to mind. What are your thoughts? Because there's just one answer, of course, just a box answer.
Yeah. If there's just one answer, then it depends.
Yeah. That's the theme of this season.
Yes. And so if you engage in that behavior, does that make you a cheater? Probably. And I would definitely need more information. I would need more. I would need to talk to your partner, because really, whether it's cheating or not is up to you and your partner's definition of and parameters for your relationship. There are some people who can do those things with the permission of their partner, right? And so then that's not cheating. And so, I don't think that's who you're talking about.
Right. They probably wouldn't come in our office, exactly.
Right? So we don't see the people who've decided that both partners have decided this is okay. So typically we see people who part of their relationship agreement is for them not to do that behavior, and then they're doing that behavior.
Right.
And so to me, that is a form of cheating. Like cheating isn't just like penile vaginal penetration, right? Like cheating is more than that. The term emotional affair, is gaining popularity now, which is where you have feelings for somebody that's not your spouse or your partner, and you may or may not have engaged in sexual intercourse with that person, but there's flirting involved, and there's sharing emotional content with this person, complaining about your partner usually, and so that is considered an affair. But then there's guys that we also deal with who don't have feelings for the people that they are having sex with, and they have feelings for their partner, but that's also an affair, right? I don't know. To me, like, the word affair means that you have feelings for this person,
right?
But that, like, I could be completely wrong.
Right.
That's just what lives up here, in my
head. Right, like a relationship more than an engagement or an encounter or entanglement. That's a funny word that people use, but a relationship,
right. Because to me, like, hookup sex is not the same thing as an affair. Just in my opinion, again, like, it's not even my professional opinion. Right. It's just my own personal opinion that lives in my head. And so, like, to me, like, cheating and having an affair is that those are different terms to me. They have slightly different meaning. So where cheating would be you're having sex with somebody, or even flirting with this person or whatever, but without feelings. There's no emotional entanglement there. With an affair, and again, just my personal opinion, there is an involvement of emotional entanglement.
Right. Have you had couples where the partner was okay with some of the sexual behaviors online with other people? I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know if I've had, but have you had clients?
And so sometimes, like, people in open relationships or swingers, right? They've made this agreement, and open relationships and swingers are not the same thing.
Right.
Right. For the audience, I didn't want to imply that it was the same thing. But I've had clients in both of those categories. And so they make an agreement that, for example, like, they make an agreement, you can have sex with other people as long as I know about it and I've approved that person, right? So in other words, like, I don't want you sleeping with this person because I don't really like them, and so, but this other person I'm fine with, right?
Yeah.
But then if they break that rule, then that's classified as cheating, even though they're in a relationship where they're allowed to have sex with other people.
Right.
But if you don't follow the rules, then that's cheating.
Right. So it definitely comes down to each individual relationship. Because another example I'm thinking in a monogamous relationship, like one partner flirting with someone in person or whatever. For some people, that's like a no regardless. Like, don't even talk to the other sex much. Not in a controlling way, because that can get to another level, but generally, that's another episode. But generally, that's some people, maybe that's a no. Others, it's like, okay, well, you can flirt, but then what's that line that it becomes like, okay, maybe don't do that. You know what I mean? Maybe, I don't know if that's being alone with the opposite sex for too long or something. Like, maybe then that's one of the lines that changes the scenario. I don't know, whatever, I think is individualized to each relationship.
Yep. Yeah, each person, and then each relationship as well. Like, what is tolerable and what crosses the line, and what's the deal breaker, right? And it varies with every couple. But generally, the people that we see, they know to some degree that they've crossed the line.
Right. Whether they admit it to themselves openly or not. Right.
And whether they like that idea or agree that but at least some level they know that they've done something that has violated their relationship boundaries and contract.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and I've asked that question some of, like, if your partner was sitting there, and this is the same as, if they're engaging in just online behavior or watching porn or whatever, if your partner was sitting there, would they be okay with what you're doing? And that's like, Probably not. More often than not, they're like, no, probably not.
Right.
For sure. So what do you think, in your opinion, or in your experience, in our experience, what drives our guys to push that boundary, whether that's online or, I've had clients that have reached out to sex workers and or massage parlors or whatever, those kind of things. What do you think drives our guys to do that? It's kind of a general question, but what are some things that drives our guys to do that, you think?
It's a loaded question. I don't know.
Always.
I don't know what people are going to think about my answer, but I have an answer. They generally, when I ask guys that question, like, why did you do this thing when you knew it was wrong for your relationship and you were going to get caught and get in trouble? Like, why did you do this anyway? Right. And so answers that I hear them say is like lack of affirmation, lack of respect, they're lacking something in their life. And it's not love from their partner, by the way. Yeah,
that's what I was just going to say.
But it's, they feel disrespected continuously, or they feel, because I've heard from lots of guys that I've worked with where they're like, the only time my partner ever talks to me is to tell me what I'm doing wrong. And so that kind of lack of emotional nurturing, whatever word you want to put there, leads them to seek that elsewhere. I'm not saying that that's the right choice. I'm not saying that's advisable.
You're saying it's their fault, Brad. You're saying it's the partner's fault. No, I'm just kidding.
Right. That is not. I'm trying really hard not to say that. It's the person's, like, think of it like food, right? Like if I'm hungry, I could eat a Snickers bar, or I could make a healthy meal from scratch. Right. And so some people choose to eat a Snickers bar.
It's just so convenient, though.
Yes, it's convenient. It's going to do what I want it to do. But is it going to last? And is it going to be the most healthy choice? Right. But, cooking a meal from scratch, in other words, having, like, interacting in a healthy way with your partner, that takes work. Right. And like making a meal from scratch, a healthy meal from scratch, it takes work. And so our brains are efficient, which if you turn the word efficient over, it says lazy on the back. Yeah. And so because our brains are efficient, it looks for the easiest way to do it. And so if we want validation or acceptance, some people can choose to get that from a fake and artificial way, which would be, flirting with a stranger, or going in a chat room or whatever. That's the Snickers bar of relationships, right?
Right, so, exactly. Like it's and I know this answer, but hearing you speak, it's hard to not make that leap to, like, it's the partner's fault, but that's the thing that often partners will experience. Like, that explanation you give immediately is like, well, what is he not getting in our relationship that he needs to go elsewhere? I'm saying he because most of the time it's the guys we're talking to, but like, I have a lot of questions. I don't know, how do people not make that leap, or how do I think the one thing that comes up a lot is almost like, how do our guys explain to their partners that what you said, it was valid, like that there's a missing piece that doesn't necessarily have to do with them. You know what I mean? Like, how do our guys explain that? It's hard not to make that leap. You know what I mean?
It is. I get it, and I've heard that from the partners of my clients. Right? Like, are you saying it's my fault? And so if I stick with the food analogy, right? Like, is it the healthy meal's fault that I chose a Snickers bar? No. Right? And so it's the person doing the action's fault. They chose to make that choice. Right? They chose to do that behavior that got them into trouble and landed them in our office. But you can make the healthy meal a more viable choice, right? So there's all these companies now that'll send meals to your door, right?
Yep.
And they're pre-measured, pre-packaged. Like all you have to do,
yep, and they're healthy.
Yeah, and they're healthier, right? And so they come with instruction cards, front and back, right, with all the steps laid out. Wash the vegetables, peel the vegetables, chop the vegetables. It's
like made for guys,
right? Yes, exactly. And so there's ways to make your relationship or you as the partner a more viable choice through affirmation and validation and respecting your partner. And whenever I talk about this, I always talk about men are like dogs and women are like cats, right? Like so like when you come home and your dog is super excited to see you and he's wagging his tail and blah blah blah, right? And if you're like, oh, you're such a good boy, and then the dog will go and lay down, because it got validation and respect, and affirmations and all those things. And so I think men in general, of course, there's lots of exceptions to this, and I've seen and met with and counseled people that are exceptions to that, but men generally crave these words of affirmation. They want to be told that they're a good boy, that they're doing a good job. And even when they're making choices that aren't healthy choices, they still need to be told that the choices that they are making that are good choices, if that makes sense, right? Because sometimes the partners of my clients, they'll say, I don't want to affirm him because I don't want him to think everything's okay, because everything's not okay.
Right.
But something's okay.
Right. It's everything 100% not okay, terrible. Every decision he makes on a day-to-day, think of all the decisions in a given day. 100% of those decisions are bad. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. And that's impossible, right? Or you still wouldn't be in a relationship with this person. If they weren't ever doing anything correct, like you wouldn't stick around. And so, find something that he's doing right and affirm him for that, validate him for that, give him respect, right? Those are ways to make it the more optimal choice, right?
Yep.
And so I feel like at the beginning you asked a second question.
Like, I'm sure I forgot it.
I think you said something like, does it mean that they don't love their partner? Was that
basically
the question?
Right? I don't actually remember, but it sounds good.
Because you said like, are these things cheating? And then I think there was a
does that mean? Yeah, exactly.
And so the answer to that question, in my opinion, is no. Right? And we are doing Jose and I are doing a research study right now, and we have some other people helping us, but where we surveyed a bunch of men who look at porn and who are in relationships right now of at least 2 years, and we are not finding that. We're finding the exact opposite, that they actually love their partners a lot, and they're very committed to the relationship, but they still do this in our studies. They still look at porn, right, because they get some sort of validation from that, right, and some kind of it makes them feel good, but not just in a sexual way. It makes them feel valued and appreciated, right? And so they're getting what they need from outside of the relationship, which damages the relationship, and it hurts your partner and all these other things. But the brain wants that, and it's a quick and easy way to get it. And so even though it's false, like it's because those porn actors don't care about you,
they don't know your name,
nor do they want to,
right.
And so but it gives you this fake sense of connection, and it works for 20 minutes, and that's part of the problem, is because it works, right. And so it does. Because it works for 20 minutes, then the next time we're feeling that we need that, then we're going to return to that, because the brain's like, we'll do the thing. Right.
Quick and easy.
Yeah. And so to me, it definitely does not mean, and research backs that up, that it does not mean that you don't.
Right. Well, then you brought up two good points. The one we'll actually be covering next episode, which is great. Good segue. But the idea... The way I always conceptualize is like the system. What's the system around you, or the system you've created including your relationship, but not limited to your relationship. What's the system that created the choice to cheat or the choice to use porn or whatever? What system created that, or what system enabled that to happen? And now let's change the system. You need to, like in your analogy of making the healthy food more attractive or more accessible or whatever. And you're changing the system of what that healthy food means and what path you take, and making it at least less resistant than the path of just grabbing like a Snickers bar, including, like, again, in that analogy, not having candy in the house at all, or whatever, or drinking water before you eat, whatever, you know what I mean? You're changing the system. But anyways, that'll be our next episode. It'll be about healing after infidelity. And I think that's where that conversation comes up of like, okay, now what do we do with that system and how do we change that? But all that being said, the other good point was, like you said, the research study that we are doing, and it is showing that they still enjoy their relationship and they're in love with their partners or whatever. It's not the relationship that has caused them to do that. And I think that comes up some other misconceptions, like, the big one, men aren't happy in their relationship. That's what leads them to cheat or to watch porn. But another big one that comes up is like, I'm not having enough sex with him. So is that why he's stepping out, if you will? You know what I mean? Or they want to intentionally hurt me, like this person. Outside of the outlier, I'm sure people do things intentionally to hurt other people. Like, I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but generally, at least the guys that I've seen, they're not intentionally trying to hurt their partner.
Right.
You know what I mean? So those are a couple like misconceptions, I think, that we often think about men that cheat.
Well, and a lot of times that's why they keep the porn or whatever they're doing. That's why they keep it a secret, is because they don't want to hurt their partner. Right? They, which I'm not saying is the healthy choice or whatever.
Right.
It's just that's why they do what they do, right? Because they don't want to hurt their partner.
Right.
And to me, if I didn't care, I wouldn't try to hide it. Right. Like, if I'm trying to hurt you on purpose, I'm not going to hide that because I want you to see that to be hurt. So that's what I find that they're telling me is that, no, that's why I'm keeping a secret. That's why they lie. Like, when they get caught, they lie about it because they don't want to hurt their partner.
Right.
And I mean, again, they're making choices that's going to hurt their relationship, but it doesn't mean that they don't love their partner. And like that, like the statement you said about is he doing that because I'm not having enough sex with him? There's a whole bunch of things in that box, and they're all false, right? Like other things, like, if I had more sex, he wouldn't do that. So that's false. In that box, and that's false. Another thing that's in that box is if I looked better, if my breasts were bigger, if my butt was bigger, or
if I did the things that the porn stars do,
and all that's false, right? That's not. And I've even had clients of mine say, if my partner did those things, I would feel more connected to her. But that's false. Even still, from them, from false. either direction is false. Right. Because that's not why they're doing it. They're not doing it because, and research, like when you ask clients and when we do research on clients, they're not saying, I'm doing this because my partner doesn't look like this. They're saying they're doing it because they are seeking this false sense of connection and intimacy. But by intimacy, I'm not just meaning sex, like emotional connection, intimacy, right? And they're seeking attaboys, right? Like, because porn is filmed from the perspective of the viewer. Like, it's the viewer that's actually having sex. That's the way it's filmed. And so they're getting affirmation and validation from that. And so it doesn't have anything to do with if I did this more or did less of this, or if I looked like this, or if this part was bigger or this part was smaller. It doesn't have anything to do with that. And actually, the most convincing reasoning I can give to partners of that is, well, because I asked the guy who's doing the behavior, the problematic behavior, I'm like, well, when did you start doing this? And they're like, well, I was 12 or 14. And I'm like, oh, so that was way before you met your current partner.
Right.
And they're like, yeah.
Yep.
Well, then obviously it doesn't have anything to do with your current partner.
Right, exactly.
It doesn't have anything to do with what she's doing or not doing, because this was way before her.
Right. And even, on top of that, say it's not, in my opinion, it may not be that you've been always cheating, but I also think some of the problematic sexual behaviors in general that you've been doing predates your relationship as well. You know what I mean? Yep. I could see an argument be like, well, I haven't always cheated. Right. I haven't always done this like other stuff, but I'm sure you've had shades of something of that behavior way before your partner too. You know what I mean? So that just like as a clarification, because I could see partners being like, well, they didn't cheat in every relationship, but they did something that was related way before you. You know what I mean?
Because these patterns are established way before the person gets in a relationship.
Exactly.
Somewhere, typically around puberty, right? So 10, 11, 12, 13, something like that, is generally when these types of behaviors start.
Right.
Like the latching on to sexualized behaviors to get their emotional needs met.
Right. Now another two more questions that come into mind, but one of the questions I feel like is something to address. If a guy is engaging in online behaviors with other people, does that guarantee that he's going to do something in person?
No. Absolutely not.
I knew the answer, but
but it's good to ask the question, because somebody out there is thinking that, right? And so it also doesn't mean they're not going to
right, either. Exactly. Of course, the most non-answer ever. Right. Yes and no.
Feel like a politician. No, but yes. So there's just no, like, I think where these questions, not necessarily just from you, but questions that the partners of our clients ask, it's coming from a place of how do I control this? How do I stop this behavior? What caused it? Like they think that there's some gene or something, right, in their DNA, and it's not a consistent, hard and fast thing. Like it's, I'm sorry, but it's not. Right? Like we're searching for this, like, oh, you had meatloaf and it was a Tuesday. That's why you look at porn. That's what it is.
I'll never do that again.
Right. Yeah, and I'll never do that again. And then we won't have this problem.
Yes.
And it's not that easy.
Well, and guys, too, will have the same thought with, like, if I just didn't have the sexual desire, if my sexual desire was lower, then I wouldn't just have it. We're all looking for that thing, so then we could just not do that thing. But it's never that simple.
And the reason we're looking for that thing is because our brains look for efficiency, in other words, laziness, right? Like we want the lazy answer because it's easy. Like we want a pill, right? If I just took a pill, I wouldn't have this problem, right? Well, the problem would still be there.
Yeah. Not going
right? Because the problem started somewhere in your childhood, and you weren't getting what you needed, and so you found a cheap and easy way to get what you needed, and then you became dependent on that to get what you needed, right? And so it doesn't mean, like, just because somebody looks at porn every day and masturbates every day to it, it doesn't mean they're going to hook up with somebody in real life. But they could. Right. Like some do, but it's not a guarantee.
Right.
100% of them don't. Right. I don't even know if the majority of my clients have done that.
What about people that have engaged in sexual behaviors with other people online compared to, is that different or no? Same.
No, there's still no guarantees, right? Like it's because like with the online behaviors, like online kind of interaction, I call them chat rooms, but that's probably because I'm old, right? That's probably not what they're called.
AOL chat rooms.
If you're talking to somebody through some sort of instant messaging, whatever you're calling that, whatever you call that these days, if you're doing that, there are people who are completely averse to hooking up with somebody in real life. Like that would be a turn off for them to do that in real life. And so they've kind of created this clear demarcation in their brain. But unfortunately, there have been people who have started affair partners through these instant messaging apps, right? And so that's where that myth comes from, is because there have been some people, but I think it's a minority of people. According to the people that I work with, it's the minority of my clients that have actually acted physically on that.
Right.
Some of my clients have, but most of them have not.
Right.
They have no intention, nor do they have desire to do that. Right. Like that's not okay with them. Right. And so just because this happens doesn't mean that this is a guarantee.
Right.
But also, I'm still not saying that it's healthy.
Yes, you're right. Disclaimer. Just should be the disclaimer above just going the whole episode.
Yeah.
We're not endorsing.
Right. I'm explaining like what is happening in people's minds. I'm not saying they're making healthy choices or it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
I'm just explaining, that it doesn't necessarily lead to physical cheating.
Right. Exactly. Well, there's this other phenomenon. I think we've talked about it in the past. But what about this idea of, I think you had the way you put it, and I don't, if that's appropriate, whatever. The nuclear option of the relationship where some partners will, and maybe this is a outlier, some partners will cheat on their partner instead of leaving them or whatever. I think you were talking about a client or a couple that you had. What are your...
So are you meaning like
or to get their partner to leave? Sorry, go ahead. I think you had a client, one partner cheated on the partner rather than saying they didn't want to be in the relationship or something like that. To get them to leave them, they just cheat instead. You know what I mean?
So are you talking about the male is actually cheating, or the female is cheating to get back at the male?
The initial cheating. I think the couple you had was a gay couple, I think, actually. But that's me. I don't know.
And so that happens. Like so I wasn't confused because I didn't know what you're talking about. I just wanted to know which direction we were going. Right?
I see.
And so that is fairly common, not necessarily the physical cheating.
Right.
I keep wanting to be wait till I'm done before you make any judgments.
Like, wait a minute, he just said that from comment.
Exactly. Wait a minute. So picking a fight with my partner so that I can, so I'm able to do the behavior that I want to do, that is fairly
super common.
Right? So because often we do these out of control behaviors in secret, right? And so we're alone. And so I need to pick a fight with you so that you go off and go visit your mom or something while I can do my out of control sexual behavior, right? Because there needs to be this isolation happening. And so there's that. Another kind of related issue is, and I've had several clients that fall into this category too, where they'll, the person that I'm in a relationship with, I'm protecting that person from the dirtiness of sex, right? Like, I love you and I want to respect you and honor you. And so I'm not going to sully your reputation by being sexual with you. I'm going to be sexual with this person I don't care about, and then come back and have a relationship with you.
Right.
So it's almost like, and this could probably be its own topic, what I'm about to say is that romantic and sexual attraction are not the same thing.
Yeah.
And so that blows people's minds when I talk about that, because society has conflated those two terms, but they're really two separate concepts. That I can be romantically attracted and sexually attracted to two different types of people. Right.
And they don't necessarily have to be intertwined or whatever. Right. Yeah, I mean, that happens often, like that idea of like protecting the other person, which is so funny because it is backwards because you're not protecting them, because
right.
once they find out that you're doing stuff, then you're definitely not protecting them. But there's something about that of like keeping that person pure, their partner pure or something, and it's just so interesting, like compartmentalizing in that sense, and justifying to themselves. I mean, a lot of our guys use that that tactic often, like, oh, it's just this, it's just like this behavior, but it's not like fully going there, or if I'm protecting my partner this way, then maybe that's not as bad, you know. It's just interesting, like how they can justify. And
that's
a good one.
You know, again, I feel like I have to repeat every time. Like, we're not saying that's the healthy choice, right? It's not the right choice, but that's what is kind of behind that, right? Is I'm. So yeah, basically what we're saying is I'm doing this out of control sexual behavior because I love you.
Right. Whoa, wait a minute. Right.
Click end podcast.
And, we just lost our 5 people now. So you're saying love and infidelity can exist simultaneously. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Crazy.
Yeah. And they do. And that's... Not only can they, I think it does exist simultaneously. It's very, very rare that I've had a client where they're like, I do this because I don't really like my partner. Right? It's very near 100%, if not 100% of my clients are madly in love with their partner, and they still do this behavior. Right?
Yep. I've never had a client ever say that.
Right.
Ever. Like, yep, I'm gonna get her back or him back. That's what I'm gonna do. Yeah. At least in here. I mean, I'm sure there's people out there, but none of my clients.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It's hard, but it's hard. It's hard to have those two concepts happen at the same time, for sure. Because again, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head again with the brain. The brain wants it easy and lazy. If your partner is just a huge asshole, that's easy. You're like, oh, they're a terrible human being. Yeah. They never loved me anyways. Right. You know, okay, cool. Well, I'm going to divorce them and take all their money, whatever. I don't know. It's easy. You know what I mean? But it's harder to be like, well, it's not quite that. You know?
Yeah. And that is what the partner, if the partner is saying that, well, they're doing this because they don't love me, or they're doing this because they never loved me, or I don't even know who this person is. It's all a lie. Right. That's the easy way. That's the easy excuse. Right? That's the easy answer. Because now I don't have to do any work. It's because, you were defective from the get-go, so I don't have to change anything. I don't have to work at this. Because it's all your fault. Yep,
exactly. It's tough, but that's perfect. That'll propel us into our next episode, talking about healing after the infidelity or whatever, because there's a lot of work that comes with that, both in the partner and the guys that we see. It's hard. It's hard work, and it could be long process for sure. But I think what we've established is a bit of a baseline, or a bit of a underlying thing of like, okay, this is kind of where you start. It's not about you necessarily. All the things that we talked about of like the reasons that guys do it, it's never specifically you suck as a partner. Right. You know what I mean? Like that's not been the reason that I've found. You know what I mean? So from there, then we can work up. You know what I mean? For sure. Yeah. So it's not because of a lack of love from your partner. That's not why they're doing this. Yeah. And it's a myth. It's a myth that's easy to believe. Yep. But it just doesn't, through our anecdotal evidence, through contact with clients who have this problem, and through scholarly research, we're not finding that that's the reason. Exactly. There's no support for that. Sweet. Yeah. Well, hopefully we don't get canceled on our love and infidelity kind of stuff. That's definitely going on social media, so look out on our TikTok. Awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the next episode. Obviously, guys, if you want to check out our social media, is Wet Dreamz with a Z podcast. I'm basically everything: Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and all that. And looking forward to continuing to churn these out. Yes. Yeah, thanks for joining us. Thanks. The Wet Dreamz Podcast and any content posted is intended for general information, educational, and entertainment purposes only. We are not responsible for any losses, damages, or liabilities that may arise from the use of this podcast. It is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or other qualified professional, diagnosis, or treatment. Listeners should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice for any medical or mental health condition they may have, and should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions.